everyone. This is Ms. Humbert here. Today we're going to be doing Unit 1, Notes 3. So we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting fractions. So here's a couple things you need to know about adding and subtracting fractions. Okay, so in order to add or subtract fractions, the denominator, which is the bottom of the fraction, has to be the same number. So if it's not the same number, you're going to have to do some work to make sure that it is the same number. So you're going to have to do some multiplying to find a number that's in common. And we'll talk about how to do that in a little bit. So that's basically what we're going to kind of work on today, is finding what's known as a common denominator. This is something you've done in middle school that we're going to kind of work forward and do today. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 1. Well, number 1 to me seems pretty straightforward because we have the same number on the bottom. Now, when you have the same number on the bottom, that means you can add the fractions. And when you go and add the fractions, what you're going to do is add the numerator, or the top. So I'm going to take 1 plus 3, and that's going to give me 4. And then on the bottom, the denominator is going to stay the same at 5. So that's the fraction 4/5. Same thing with number 2. We can go ahead and because these are both 7s, we can add the top 2 and 4, which is 6. And then on the bottom, we have 7. So we have 6/7 for number 2. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 3. So for number 3, again, we have the bottoms the same, which means we can instantly go and add the top. Well, 4 plus 4 is 8, and then on the bottom is 5. Now notice that the number on top is larger than the number on the bottom. That's what we call an improper fraction. So we want to put it into a better format. So what I could do is I could also look at this as 5/5 plus 3/5. Okay, so why did I do that? Well, 5/5 is the same as 1. So I can take a whole out of that fraction. So we just want just the fraction part. We don't want any whole numbers in there. And once we take out that whole, what's left is 3/5. Notice that 5 plus 3 is 8. So that's why I split it up that way, so I could take out that one whole of 5. Now, taking a look at number 4, subtracting is also going to be really the same thing. So on the bottom, we have 9. That's good. We're going to take 4 minus 2. So we're going to actually subtract the numerators to get 2. And again, even though it's subtraction, we do still keep the denominator the same. So our final answer for number 4 is 2/9. Now here's where it can get a little bit tricky. So taking a look at this one right here. Okay, so we don't have the same number on the bottom. So we need to create that number. Okay, so what we're going to do is I need to think, what's the smallest number that 5 and 3 multiply to? Well, the smallest number that 5 and 3 multiply to is 15. So first I need to think of, okay, what do I need to multiply 5 by to get 15? And that's going to be 3. So I'm taking the fraction 3/5. And what I'm going to do is multiply it by 3/3. Again, shooting to get that 15 on the bottom. Well, when I multiply by 3/3, that's really the same as multiplying by 1. So I'm not changing the value of my problem. Now, taking a look at that second fraction, I'm going to ask myself, okay, what do I need to multiply 3 by to get to 15? And that's going to be 5. So I'm going to take my original fraction, and I'm going to multiply it by 5/5. Now, here's the kind of confusing part. When you multiply fractions, you need to multiply the top and the bottom. Okay, so 3 times 3 is 9, and 5 times 3 is 15 for that first chunk. For the second part, 2 times 5 is 10, and 3 times 5 is 15. So now we can go ahead and add these because we have the same number on the bottom. Now going back to adding, remember we keep the same number on the bottom. So then 9 plus 10 is going to give us 19. Well, we can take a whole out because 19 is bigger than 15. So we're going to have 15/15. That's going to represent our whole. So when you take 19 minus 15, you have 4 left over. So then this is going to become a whole. So we have 1 whole and 4/15 left over as our final answer for number 5. Let's take a look at number 6. Again, we don't have the same number on the bottom, so we need to create it. So what's the smallest number that 5 and 2 multiply by? 2, sorry. The smallest number that 5 and 2 multiply by 2 are going to be 10. So what do I need to multiply 5 by to get to 10? Well, that's going to be 2, so I'm going to multiply 2 over 2. What do I need to multiply this 2 by to get to 10? And that's going to be 5. So remember, I'm multiplying the same number over itself, so it's like multiplying. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then 5 times 2 is 10. Remember, that's our bottom denominator that we're shooting for. 1 times 5 is 5, and 2 times 5 is 10. So now that I have the same number as the denominator, I can go ahead and add 4 and 5 to give me 9/10. And there's no more simplifying that we can do with that number. Let's take a look at number 7. So for number 7, we can actually instantly go ahead and add those together because they have the same number. Well, 1 plus 5 is 6, and again, we're going to keep the denominator the same as 8. Well, here's what we want to do is reduce the fraction, okay? Because both 6 and 8 are divisible by the same number. So it's kind of like way back in algebra when we did greatest common factor. What divides 6 and what divides 8? Well, that's going to be 2. So we're going to take each of these numbers and divide them by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is going to be 3. If I could write and talk at the same time, that'd be great. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So then our answer, our reduced fraction, is 3/4. Taking a look at number 8, again, same numbers in the denominator, so I can go ahead and add them. So I'm going to keep my denominator as 5. 3 plus 2 is going to give me 5. Well, I have 5 over 5. Remember that any number over itself is always 1. So that's your final answer for number 8. Okay, let's take a look now at number 9. So here we have a mixed fraction. So what I want to do here is I am going to take and I want to make this be the same as that. So what do I need to multiply 2 by to get to 8? And that's going to be 4. So I have 3 and 3/8. I'm just going to keep that the same. Now I'm taking this 1/2 and I'm going to multiply it by 4 over 4. Again, what I'm trying to do is make this number here multiply to that number. So 3 and 3/8 is going to stay the same. And then 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay? So then we can go ahead and we can add these up. So I can add the whole numbers with the whole numbers. So the big numbers out front I can add together to get 5. Now, since both of these now have a common denominator of 8, I can add the 3 and the 4 to get 7. And that can't be simplified anymore, so 5 and 7/8 is our final answer. Taking a look at number 10, what we want to do is make this number match that number. What's the smallest number 4 and 8 both multiply to? Well, that's going to be 8. So I'm going to ask myself, okay, what does I need to multiply 4 by to get to 8? So I have 11 and 3/4. Well, I need to multiply 4 by 2 to get to 8. So I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2. Minus 4 and 5/8. So now when I multiply the fraction, I'll multiply across. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 and then 5/8. So here again, I'm going to subtract the whole numbers. 11 minus 4 is going to give me 7. And then I'm going to subtract the numerators since they both have a common denominator of 8. 6 minus 5 is going to give me 1. So 7 and 1/8 is my final answer for number 10. Let's take a look at number 11. So for number 11, what we want to do is we want to subtract those out. So I'm looking at 2, and I want to figure out what I need to multiply 2 by to get to 6. And that's going to be 3. So if you're having problems figuring out what you need to multiply, come talk to me and let's work on it together. So I have the fraction 1/2, and I want to figure out what I need to multiply by to get to 6, and that's going to be 3. So I'm going to keep that first fraction the same. The second fraction, I'm going to multiply the top. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So now I'm ready to subtract. 4 minus 2, subtracting the big numbers, is going to be 2. 5 minus 3 is going to be 2 over 6. Now, before we say we're done, notice that the fraction 2 over 6, 2 and 6 are both divisible by 2. So we need to reduce that fraction. We keep this number the same because it has nothing to do with the fraction. 2 and 6 are both divided by 2, and you end up with 1/3. Taking a look now at number 12. So we want to figure out what the smallest number that 10 and 4 both multiply to. Well, the smallest number that they both multiply to is actually 20. So I'm going to keep my 9 here. And what do I need to multiply 10 by to get to 20? Well, I need to multiply it by 2 over 2. Next, what do I need to multiply 4 by to get to 20? Well, I need to multiply by 5. So we're just going to do each of those fractions. So then, 5 times 2 is 10, and 2 times 10 is 20. So then we're going to subtract out 4. 1 times 5 is 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So now that we have that all set to go, we're ready to subtract. Notice they have the same denominator. 9 minus 4 is 5. 10 minus 5 is going to give us 5 and then 20. And we actually need to reduce that fraction because 5 and 20 are both divisible by 5. So I'm going to keep this number the same. 5 and 20 are both divisible by 5, which is 1 over 4. So that's your final answer for number 12. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 13. So we want to figure out what the smallest number that 3 and 10 both multiply to. And that's going to be 30. So what do I need to multiply 3 to get to 30? That's going to be 10. So I'm going to take and multiply by 10 over 10. Next, how do I get 10 to 30? Well, that's going to be multiplying by 3. So I'm going to multiply by 3 over 3. So now we can go ahead and simplify out our fractions. So we're going to have 2 times 10, which is 20 over 30. And then we have our 4. 8 times 3 is 24 over 30. So we're subtracting, and what I notice is that 20 is smaller than the 24. So we're subtracting off something we don't have. So we need to borrow from that 9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write 8. And I'm going to add in a 30 over 30 here to my 20 over 30, and then minus 4. So all I did was I took out one whole, which is 30 over 30. So this guy right here is going to become 50 over 30. Notice that I dropped this down to 8 when I took out that whole. Minus 4, 24 30ths. So now I can go ahead and I can subtract. 8 minus 4 is going to give us 4. 50 minus 24 is going to give us 26 over 30. Now 26 and 30 are both divisible by 2. 26 divided by 2 is 13. 30 divided by 2 is 15. So this is your final answer for number 13. Taking a look at this next one. So what we want to do is figure out what's the smallest number that 3 and 2 multiply to. And that's going to be 6. So 2/3, and I'm going to multiply this by 2 over 2. And then for this one, I'm going to multiply this by 3 over 3. What I would like you to do is I would like you guys to go ahead and try this one on your own and see if you can get that. Remember, I will be checking that it is completed on your note sheet. So I also want to do a little quick review because you're going to have some on your worksheet. So lines B and Y are coplanar. So that means that they need to be on the same plane. So here's my plane Q. Remember, capital script letter. And so B and Y are on the same plane, but they don't intersect. So I'm going to draw two lines that don't intersect. Lower script B and lower script Y to name each of those lines. Line X intersects B at point C and line Y at point D. So it's going to intersect both lines. So here's line X, come on, right here. So it's going to intersect B at point C, so that point's labeled C, and this point's labeled D. So you're going to be using some of those definitions on your practice today. Last but not least, R and B intersect at the line Y. So R and B are planes. So here's one plane. And then I'm going to actually have a plane that intersects it. Not a very well drawn one. So here's where those two planes intersect. And they're going to intersect at a line. And that line needs to be labeled X, Y. So let's name our planes R and B. So in order for that plane to be labeled X, Y, we have to have 2 points on the line that are labeled X, Y. So that concludes your note video for today. Go ahead and show me your completed note sheet when you are done. Thanks for listening.